Okay, let's have some truth today. I'm going to talk about the left's dangerous war on language, culture, freedom, and logic. This may have to be divided into two videos if it goes too long. Going to cover a variety of things uh, beyond like entertainment, movies, and video games, which is something we're all been thinking about and talking about. A lot of people like me lately. I am a political science major from college, so not an ignorant red state, although I live in a red state, an ignorant person. But I majored in poli-sci when it wasn't basically an indoctrination program. So I'm going to touch on a lot of different things here. Just start off with a little Orwell, because a lot of this stuff kind of goes back to 1984 and Animal Farm. Obviously, I assume most of you have read those, although I think they're not requiring kids to read these in school anymore. Power is in tearing human minds to pieces and putting them together again in new shapes of your own choosing. Then we have a guy, ironically, with a COVID mask that says, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. And that's some of the wordplay I'm going to discuss and the meaning of words changing over time, primarily done by the left, often for political reasons, various other reasons, marketing and things like that. But the concept there, war is peace, peace is war, freedom is slavery, slavery is freedom, ignorance is strength, strength is ignorance. The contradictions, the sort of brainwashing, the reversal of things, which I'll talk about that a little more as well. And then we have Animal Farm. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Now, there's debate about whether all of Orwell's work was directed at communists and the USSR, whether he was, sympathetic to other causes. Well, bottom line is it basically relates to that 100%. And everything he warned about has come true and is coming true now today. There's a reason 1984 and Big Brother is a reason. When we say some animals are more equal than others, the ultimate sort of version of that is the giant communist parties of the Soviet Union and China. Notice how similar their setups are. And this is sort of what the left, it's the underpinning of what the left is going after, what woke means, what woke is going after, although it's in slightly different angles. And it's not necessarily that they even know that, but it's sort of the root of it all in a modern kind of variation. First, I want to talk a little bit about race, affirmative action type stuff. So Martin Luther King said, I look to a day when people will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He was obviously a brilliant, inspirational man. Virtually everything he said can be flipped and applied today. And it does apply to everyone. I want to talk real quick about the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Now, I'm not an expert in all of this. I'm not a lawyer, constitutional lawyer, but I do have some opinions on this, and there's just eyeballing a few things in it that I wanted to go over real quick. Title I of voting rights. It did not abolish the concept of voter qualification. Basically says that citizens would have to meet citizenship to vote as a requirement. And like I said, it did not abolish the concept, though, of voter qualification within reason. So any concept that, illegal immigrants who cross the border can be given a card and go vote, or people without ID can go vote, is bullshit. A lot of what I'm talking about here in this part is how a lot of the Civil Rights Act is being violated. And I'm hoping the Supreme Court in the coming years will enforce more and more of this. They've already done this, as I'll talk about in a second. They've already begun to do this. Title IV involves the desegregation of public schools, aka no groups, no participation of things that are segregated to one ethnic group, or other one ethnic group is barred from it. Non-discrimination in federally assisted programs. No program that has discrimination can receive federal funds. If they're found in violation, they may lose federal funding. equal employment opportunity, prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. This is all applicable today to things like college admissions, internships, um, jobs, programs, grants, funding, all of that. A lot of this stuff is unconstitutional or illegal by this law and will be thrown out, in my opinion, definitely should be thrown out. A lot of it will be thrown out in favor of, if you do want to help disadvantaged people, purely based on things like family background, income, hardship, regardless of the color of your skin, regardless of your gender, regardless of your sexuality. Because the fact right now in 2024, heading in 2025, is that a poor white guy, poor white young kid growing up in Appalachia actually has less opportunity than a mixed race woman lesbian growing up in a rich suburb. And that's a fact. And it's illegal to discriminate in favor. That's what the law says. Recently, there was a case. That's the first major one the Supreme Court did rule on was that Harvard University literally was discriminating against Asian people in admissions, Asian and white people, of course, in admissions in favor of black people, basically. Not to mention lowering standards of admission and lowering standards of graduation, things like that. Just think about that for a second. So the same thing with University of California. Universities were doing this as well. Think about that for a second. How in the fuck could somebody think that is legal by any stretch, or right, by any stretch of imagination? So, starting to go into a little bit of this, you've probably seen this meme before. It's a great one. Although some of you may be as old as me or older and not as familiar with things. Everyone I don't like is Hitler, a child's guide to online political discussion. What you're looking at nowadays is the left online has been exposed. They were sheltered and protected for so long on Twitter and upheld with censorship on YouTube and Facebook and elsewhere after 2016, after COVID, and even with the latest election cycle, that they lost critical thinking skills and logic. They resort to emotion, name calling, slurring, things like that. And I'm going to mention ironically on a lot of the things coming up regarding words and language, because a lot of it is ironic. It's very Orwell doublespeak, reversal. They call you a racist, but racism against white people is okay. They call you a sexist, but sexism against males is okay. They call you a fascist, but Antifa is actually the fascist. They're the black shirts going around in masks beating people up who they don't like. They call you transphobic, but they also think they were biological men competing in women's sports is okay. And anybody who doesn't have the balls to say that that is wrong is, number one, a pussy. A lot of politicians, people on the left, they won't come out and say it. They put, and just regular people, they pussyfoot around it online. They divert. They try to obfuscate. When 85% plus of people agree with this, that we're not making special laws also for 1% of people that 90% of people disagree on. They call you Islamophobic. Just want to keep in mind there's 3 billion Muslims in the world. It's a religion. There's 15 million Jewish people, which actually to some degree is an ethnicity, although the government in America doesn't rule it as that. There's 15 million Jewish people in the world who they call Zionists, which has actually become an anti-Semitic slur in many cases. And then, of course, we have hate speech, which is anything critical of a marginalized group. First, we'll start off with illegal immigration. Some of these I'm just going to trace the evolution of words over time. And of course, I may leave stuff out, just giving you a broad idea. And, you know, this is a Cheech movie from a long time ago from the 80s called Born in East LA. That's actually really funny. I'm a big fan of Cheech and Chong. But it's about a guy who's a Mexican guy who was born in East LA and he gets mistaken for a legal immigrant and they want to deport him. But nonetheless, what were once called illegal aliens were then called illegal immigrants. Then there was a push just to combine and call them immigrants. Now what you hear all the time is migrants, especially in the news, from news people from CNN, MSNBC, etc., and written. That is the biggest fucking sort of propaganda doublespeak that's imaginable. It imagines that people are so dumb that they conflate the two in their minds, and they don't understand that there's such a thing as illegal immigrants and legal immigrants. Everybody likes legal immigrants. They keep the blood of America going. They bring fresh ideas. They bring fresh work. They bring fresh everything. We're talking about people from India, Pakistan, all over the world, including Mexico and a variety of other places. Then get into asylum seekers recently with the organized caravans who were funded by various shadowy NGO groups. I don't want to get too conspiratorial on who was funding them, but pretty confident it's Soros Open Society Foundations was funding some of them. Then you have they're calling some climate change migrants. Some are just justice migrants. Some are economic migrants. And again, these caravans were organized, if you remember some of them, and they were literally passing out pieces. So calling it this is a political maneuvering of word. And just ironically to note, Trump just flipped a Texas border county. You haven't probably heard that much about this. That has a 97% population and had voted Democrat since the 1800s. It's the first time they voted Republican. So what does that tell you? It tells you, number one, people who are here legally don't necessarily want illegal people to come in. These people are not vetted. They can be criminals. They can be involved in sex trafficking. They're not paying taxes in general. They're not necessarily having to abide by the law. They're not registered. And just think of it this way. If somebody wants to come to your house, would you rather them knock on the front door and come in or break in the fucking window? It's as simple as that. You can't have a country without borders. Yeah, it would be wonderful if there was a global world where we didn't need to have borders and there was no war and kumbaya and all that. But the reality is every country in the world has borders or it's no longer a country. You try to go to most countries in the world and sneak in without a visa or anything, and they'll boot your ass out. Let's talk about rebranding of words when it involves